All right, and so what I'm going to do next, folks, is I'm going to do everything we did in the Google Sheet on the calculator. So heads up, right, we're doing your height, your handspan on our class data sheet so far. Your z-score for your height and your z-score for your handspan, you got those. You multiplied these two, right? And then we did all that data processing on the spreadsheet. So let's do the same thing on the calculator because you're going to need to know these. By the way, we're working with this formula right here, right? We're trying to calculate R the slow way, right? And then I'm just asking you to like understand what goes into that. The calculator has a function that does that real fast for us moving forward. All right, so here is what I have going on. I have in my, if I go to stat edit, in my list 1, I have everybody's heights. In my list 2, I have everybody's handspans. And then I have a new student that I need to add. So this will walk me through, I'll walk through all the steps that we did, including saving the lists, just in case you didn't have that. If you get tired of scrolling down, because there's 32 numbers to go down, you can always scroll up. So if you scroll up, you can loop around the top. So basically here, I'm on my first number, I go on the title of my list, and then I go up one more time, and I'm at the bottom. Kind of cool. Let me just take a quick look at the number I need to add. The number I need to add is...
Say the name of the function.
Wow.
And then in parentheses with a quote.
Don't talk to yourself. It's really weird. Okay. This extra value I need to add. Come on, Google. You can do it. Don't freak out on me now. 63 and 8. Okay. So I am over here. I'm going to add the new point on the bottom. That was an 8 for that one. And on here, I'm putting a 63, hitting enter. So this is my class data set. I want to keep it for a long time. I want to have it available. I'm going to store it. I have noticed that I had a typo. I needed to edit something. And maybe some of you have a typo too. You notice that your numbers don't match mine, or that your correlation coefficient doesn't match mine. So if this happens, you want to restore it. So heads up, you want to get out of this screen. So the best way to get there, don't hit clear or delete. That's super dangerous. Second mode, to quit, to get to a normal typey menu. And then you're going to be asking your calculator to store list 1 and list 2. So the way that works is you're going to pick list 1. So you go second 1 to say list 1. And then you're saying will be stored. This is the fancy store button. STO, please store. And then you name it. And you name it 5 characters. And if you're typing, you hit the alpha button. So I'm calling it height. HG. HT. I'm calling it first period because I have more than one period. You guys don't have to do that. All right, so I'm now covering up my old height list with this one that is updated. And then same thing with list 2. So list 2, I go second 2 to choose the right list. I hit the store button to store it. Gives me an arrow. And then I'm naming the second one. So I'm naming this handspan. So alpha hand for first period. So now this is my updated list. All right. The stuff we just did on the spreadsheet, you can absolutely do on your calculator. The first thing I'm going to do, because I didn't write it down, I'm going to get the average and standard deviation for both of these. I can do 1 var stats twice, or I can do 2 var stats. Heads up, these guys have to have the same length of things to make that work. So I'm looking at X bar and Y bar. All right, so I'm going to be editing these numbers that I have up here. So we had... Uh-oh. Does that match the spreadsheet? Well, if it doesn't, whoops. Okay, so everybody should be calculating their z-scores by subtracting a 66.83 now. And the standard deviation is the S on here, 3.26. Okay. And then if I keep scrolling, this is X bar and S for X. There are 32 data points. This is Y bar, so this is the average of the response variable, which was 7.54. And the standard deviation for Y is this guy. So Y bar, average of the Ys, standard deviation of the Y is 1.21. So I'm changing the numbers that I'm using. I'm writing those down because I need to use them in my table. So this table also works like the spreadsheet does. So I'm going to go to edit. So heads up, guys, I'm going to be doing the next 2 lists for z-scores. So the way this works, you go on the name of the list, you type the formula in. So I'm going to type for list 3. I'm typing on the bottom, parentheses, please take all of list 1, take away for everybody in list 1 a 66.83, close that parenthesis and divide by the standard deviation for the heights, 3.26. This is everybody's z-scores. Then I'm going to go over list 4. Now I'm working on everybody's handspan z-scores. So for list 4, I'm going to take handspans list 2, parenthesis, list 2, take away the average handspan, 7.54, close parenthesis, and divide by the class standard deviation for handspan, 1.21. This is my formula. This is what I typed in. Once I hit enter, the instructions will disappear, but it's going to fill in my numbers. All right. Last step, last column is going to be this is an old list of mine. I don't care. So list 5 is going to be multiplying the two z-scores, right? That was the next step. So I'm going to say take this list and multiply them. So list 3 times list 4. Yep, that's it. So that's going to be everybody's 2 multiplied z-scores. And then to get the correlation coefficient, which by the way, guys, we didn't write down, which is an error. Okay. We added up everybody's z-score for x and z-score for y, and then divided by n minus 1. Currently our n is 32. So calculator can totally add up your list for you as well. This is a little interesting. There's a section in stat that's list. So if you do second stat, you're going to go to a list menu. This is where it stores all of your stored data. So your handspan height, you're going to live in here. And then there's some stuff you can do to lists. So you can sort, you can, I don't use this one very much. I'm going to math. All right. So actually, guys, you know what? I don't want to do this. I was in my list. I actually want to make sure I'm in a calculating menu. I'm in a calculating menu. So what I'm doing is taking everybody's multiplied z-score list, which is list 5, and adding them up and dividing by n minus 1. So the way you do that, from a normal calculating screen, you go second stat for lists. You do math to your whole list, and the math you'd like to do your whole list is added up, sum. And I would like to take the sum of list 5, which is list 5 is my multiplied z-scores. So when I take the sum of my list 5, this is a number I recognize from the sheet, I get a 14.711. And then I'm going to divide that by n minus 1. And that's going to be my correlation coefficient. And what we're going to say, this is our calculated correlation coefficient. What we're going to say about it is correlation of AP student heights and handspans is positive, linear, and moderate. Right? This is still moderate. Moderate is anything between 0.4 and 0.7. So we got a little bit lower, but it's still true fact. Right? So that was our correlation coefficient. So this is the interpretation of what this number means. Heads up, folks. To get this part of this interpretation, you absolutely have to look at the graph. Let's do that. So this is a scatter plot. So I'm going to second y equals to graph to turn on whatever your last graph is that you did is going to be in here. I just showed you guys how to do that. So it's in here. So this is a scatter plot. It's type number 1. These are the 2 lists I want to be graphing. I'm going to go to zoom stat, zoom 9. This is our scatter plot. And I looked at the scatter plot and I noticed that it had a linear pattern. It's not curving this way. It's not curving that way. So linear, you have to look. So let's go ahead and say that, right? This is what this numbers means. This is who it's about. These are the 2 names of the variables. Positive comes from the graph. It's going upwards. Linear comes from looking at the graph. By the way, this is positive. That's the other place it comes from. But linear, you have to look at the graph. So let's just say must look at graph to determine. Right? You will not know the shape unless you look at the graph, and it's a critical error to not. Some really bad stuff can happen. And moderate is how strong this looks to me from here, and also this number is a moderate number.